You check your phone over 200 times a day. Statistically, we all do. It's not that we're consciously deciding to do that 200 times, it just happens. This raises the question, are you in control of your phone, or is your phone in control of you? I'm Ryder Carroll, and I've spent decades developing an intentional life practice called the bullet journal method. It uses tools like physical notebooks to help you align your actions with your values. In this video, I've taken those principles and applied them to arguably one of the most life-altering technologies that we've ever created, the modern smartphone. It's profoundly influenced the way that we think, that we feel, that we act, not to mention the way that we relate to each other and ourselves. I'll explore 3 ways that I transform my phone to help me live the life that I actually want. At the end, I'll share a free downloadable guide that shows you a step-by-step how-to for how you can do this yourself. Before I show you my solutions, let me frame the problem. In Disney's Fantasia, there's a segment called The Sorcerer's Apprentice. Mickey steals the sorcerer's magic hat and uses it to animate a broom to do his chores for him. He casts a spell, takes a nap, and wakes up to chaos. The broom has split into countless others that are now running around destroying the place. Mickey has no idea how to undo the spell. It's a perfect metaphor for smartphones. We got this magical power, and now we're waking up to realize we've lost control. Here's the thing. When Mickey had access to unlimited power, he didn't use it to make himself a better learner or more skilled or wiser. In other words, he didn't use the power, that magic, to become a better apprentice. He used it to avoid the very work that would have made him a sorcerer. He was seduced by the features instead of defining a purpose. He saw what hat could do, animate objects, automate the work, and immediately started to use it without ever thinking about who he wanted to be. I think we're guilty of the same thing, without even knowing it. When Steve Jobs announced the iPhone, he famously defined it as an iPod, an iPhone, and an internet communicator. These are 3 consumption devices. Nearly 2 decades later, that's still how most of us use it. We inherited a purpose instead of defining our own. We got this incredibly powerful tool, and we ended up using it not to empower ourselves, but to avoid discomfort. The discomfort of boredom, difficult feelings, hard conversations, uncertainty. We were so focused on what this thing could do rather than who it could help us be. So instead of making my phone dumb or minimal, I decided to make it mine. And here are 3 ways that I did that. As a species, we're drawn to novelty because it aided our survival. The unexpected hijacks our attention because it signals something dangerous or beneficial. Smartphones exploit this instinct through color, animation, notifications, and branding. So I started by making my phone emotionally flat. First, I turned off all notifications except for emergency contacts. Then I deleted all algorithmic apps. Finally, I stripped the visual triggers. I turned on grayscale, reduced my screens just to 1 with essential apps, and I replaced all app icons with simple text labels. Here's why. App icons are branded to create feelings. Close your eyes. Picture the Instagram logo. You probably will feel something, maybe a pull, maybe anticipation. That's conditioning. Simple text labels don't trigger that same dopamine response. The goal wasn't to declutter my phone, it was to take back control of what triggers my thoughts, my feelings, and my actions. Which brings us to step 2. For most of us, our phones are mainly consumption devices, and there's nothing inherently wrong with that, unless our consumption disconnects us from those we love or from ourselves. Our feeds promise refuge from difficult thoughts and feelings, but often leave us feeling worse. We're not processing our experiences by doom scrolling, we're avoiding or suppressing them. Over time, this pattern reliably makes us feel even more anxious, sad, stressed, disconnected, and alone. So instead of using my phone to avoid what I don't want in the short term, I wanted to use it to move towards what I wanted in the long term, to be a better creator, partner, friend, learner, whatever matters to me. All of those things require action. So here's what I did. I changed all app names to verbs, actions that support who I want to be, like write, connect, move, learn, plan. The shift is subtle but powerful. I'm not reacting to brands or my life. I'm exercising my agency, one intentional action at a time. These actions give my phone a meaningful purpose, a purpose that I chose. Every time I take one of those actions, it shifts the context of the device from consumption to creation. This in turn makes me relate to my phone differently. I feel myself slowly rewiring my muscle memory. Picking up my phone is no longer an escape. It's an invitation to engage with my life more intentionally. This makes my phone way less fun to use, so I pick it up less, which means that I spend more time in the real world. And when I do pick it up, it actually feels somewhat worthwhile. Of course, who we want to be throughout the day changes, which brings us to step 3. But first, if this is resonating, hit like and subscribe. It really helps me keep making these, and I appreciate it. Who we are changes throughout the day. We may be an athlete from 8 to 9 a.m., a supervisor from 9 to 5 p.m., and a spouse from 5 to 11 p.m. Each of those roles has its own context, its own priorities, responsibilities, and energy. When we're not clear on those distinctions, we suffer. And you've probably felt this, trying to be present with loved ones while distracted with work responsibilities. That's context bleed, and it's exhausting, but it's also fixable when you're intentional. So to get clear on the different context windows of your life, I recommend sitting down with something analog like a sheet of paper or a notebook, someplace where you'll be completely undistracted, and start to list out the different roles that you play in your life and when you play them. Once I had a clear list of my different context windows, I used my iPhone's focus modes to automatically update my interface throughout the day. Here's my current setup. From 7 a.m. to 9 a.m., I am self-care Ryder. This is when I focus on my own well-being. This is when I put my oxygen mask on. I like seeing the weather on top because it informs my workout. Pray. This links to a recording of a prayer that I listen to every morning to remind me of how I want to show up for myself and others and the world. Read. This links me to whatever audiobook I'm listening to for my walk to the gym. Move. This links me to whatever workout I'm currently focused on. In this case, it's just a list of exercises in my Apple Notes. Meditate. This links me to whatever meditation currently supports what's most alive for me in this season of my life. Right now, it's the Waking Up app. Finally, Plan links me to my calendar, which I will use to figure out the day as I sit down to bullet journal. From 10 a.m. to 6 p.m., I transition to my work context window. This is my deep focus, creator, entrepreneur, business owner time. I have my calendar at the top because things are always changing and I want to see what's next. Right. This is really the core of everything that I do, so it's at the top. It's my priority. Currently, this links to IA Writer, which I use to write on my phone when I'm on the go. Actually, I used it to write most of this script. I did a whole video on this setup over here if you're interested. Manage. This links me to my Notion, which I update to make sure that I know what I'm doing and so that my team can do their job as well. Email. This one's pretty self-explanatory, but rather than having Gmail or something else, this is a verb. This is something that I need to do my best work. Synthesize. This one's newer, but it reminds me to actually process all the information that I collect throughout the day into usable and referenceable notes, in my case in Obsidian. This has often replaced doom scrolling as there is always something to update or review. At around 6 p.m., I shift to my third and final context window of the day. This is the one that I struggle with the most as a recovering workaholic. And I don't say that as a humble brag. I really love what I do, but it can also quickly absorb my relationships, my social life, my identity, not to mention my rest and play. So this is a role that I'm actively cultivating through the following actions. Map. Again, this is a verb. This is about finding my way to people and places. It's also a reminder to be proactive and accountable for my joy, my relations, and broadening the horizons of my life. Read. This is about reading for entertainment and exploration, not for work. Right now, for example, I'm reading the Dungeon Crawler Carl series. If you know, you know. Relax. This one is an experiment right now. I could do a whole separate video on this subject, but the short version is even when I'm trying to unplug and rest, I don't want to ingest brain rot content. It's not because I'm above it or something, it's just because I'm vulnerable to it and it reliably leaves me feeling sad or anxious or upset. Future Ryder here. So I downloaded Instagram on my phone just so I could do some B-roll of me deleting it again. And I found myself on it for like half an hour. So I just want to point out I have no additional willpower than anyone else. If it's on the phone, I'm going to use it. I'm just as susceptible as anyone else. So I just want to put that out there as well. So instead, I have one aggregated feed of the things that are really high quality. In this case, I use Readwise Reader for that. Setting up these context windows was helpful in two ways. First, yes, it kept me on task. I'd open up my phone and see exactly what I had to do. Secondly, it helped me identify which actions meaningfully moved me towards who I wanted to be and which didn't. That self-awareness is critical in making actual progress. One of the big takeaways for me during this process was learning just how much I picked up my phone. As a guy who talks a lot about intentional living, it was really sobering. The question is why? Why was I picking up my phone over and over again? What was I getting out of that behavior? The answer that I landed on was kind of unexpected, but it also helped me break the spell. So let me share it with you. This brings us back to The Sorcerer's Apprentice. Many know it as a Disney story for children, but it was originally written by Johann Wolfgang von Goethe, the same author who wrote a much darker and perhaps more relevant story, that of Faust. Faust is the story of a man who wagers his soul with the devil. Not for power, not for love, not even for knowledge, but for a moment of satisfaction so great that he would want to stay there forever. In some ways, I think we're making the similar wager as Faust. We're wagering years of our lives, scrolling in hopes to satisfy not only our curiosity, but our sadness, our anger, our grief, using a technology designed not to satisfy, but to endlessly seduce. It promises a solution, but delivers only temporary distractions, and that's what makes it so diabolical. What Mickey and Faust have in common is how they reacted to their dissatisfaction. They chose to use their power to avoid discomfort, and it made things worse. When I use my phone to avoid discomfort, it also makes things worse. Why? Because nothing changes. Maybe discomfort is the thing that we should be paying attention to. We feel painful feelings only when we care about something. We think difficult thoughts about things that interest us, that are important to us. Discomfort does not necessarily signal something bad, it signals that something is meaningful. It also provides the energy that we need to act. Now we have to choose how to take action. This is where smartphones come back in. Smartphones are tools that are not good or bad. It's how we choose to use them that matters. We can choose to use them to run away from our lives by avoiding what we're thinking and feeling, to look for answers outside ourselves that only can be found within, to distract ourselves by constantly consuming information rather than doing anything with it, or we can choose to use them to engage with our lives. We can use them to embrace the discomfort of figuring out who we want to be, because that's not obvious. We have to become an apprentice of our own life, to look inward, to study what causes our heart both to swell and to break. And as uncomfortable as that can be, that's where the answers are. That's what I try to do with this setup. Every time I pick up my phone, it reminds me of how I can act towards who I want to be and the life that I want to live. Is it perfect? No, far from it. It's very much a work in progress, as am I. But it's definitely gone from a tool that helps me to avoid my life to one that reminds me how much agency I have and what matters and how I can cultivate that one small intentional action at a time. No magic required. Want to try this yourself? I made a free step-by-step guide that you can download with the link below or by scanning this QR code. How are you using your phone to engage with your life or to avoid it? Let me know in the comments down below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.